Hello, Jennifer Lewis here, and I am so excited to interview a good friend of mine now, Marianne Shaver.
Shaver like a razor.
She has become my closing attorney of choice here in Georgia, and I wanted to chat with her about the differences between California and escrow state and Georgia and attorney state, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like in the closing process, in fees, and what it physically looks like as well. What is the difference?
Well, you have to use closing attorneys in Georgia, so we review the title exam and we have all the parties to the transaction come in and physically sign with us. So, which is a little bit interesting compared to California. We're called a pass paper state here, which is kind of cute. It means that everyone sits at the closing table. I sit at the head of the closing table. I pass papers to the buyer and go over their loan documents, or if they pay in cash, their documents. And then I also pass the papers to the seller, and they meet and they converse and they talk about the neighbors and they talk about utilities and where the school bus picks up. So it's kind of, I don't know, is it Southern?
So at first, with my first closing, I thought it was very odd. I'm like, what do you mean the buyers and sellers are going to meet? We had a tough negotiation. You know, maybe they don't really want to see each other. But it's actually been a quite pleasant experience because, like you said, we sit there, you ask questions about mailboxes and neighbors and share past stories of the house and all that kind of stuff. So yes, it is very nice and pleasant, very Southern. But it was a little awkward for me because, again, back in the short sale days, and there was a lot of angst and anger and frustration. I thought, gosh, what if somebody says something wrong? But it's been quite pleasant, and everybody's had a pretty good experience. So fingers crossed it keeps going that way. And for reference, she did let me know that if that does end up happening and we need to make that special request where a seller and a buyer sign separately, we can absolutely do that as well. And since we're on the topic, how do we accommodate somebody signing out of state?
Ooh, that's a big one. California, I know you come from California, they have a completely different notary process than we have here. And Georgia has to have, if you're signing, you have to sign in the presence of an attorney. So if someone is out of state and they have loan documents, then they have to find an attorney in California. It doesn't have to be a real estate attorney, which is sometimes hard for people to find. Mm-hmm. And our notary system is a little bit different. On the bottom of our forms, you have to say signed, sealed in the presence of a witness and a notary. In California, they have what's called an acknowledgement notary, which means I can have signed something and brought it to the notary and say, I signed this, and the notary can sign it because I acknowledged my signature. Well, in Georgia, that's a no-go. So we have a special form that we have to send to your buyers in California. If they want to sign, they have to sign with an attorney, and they have to find an attorney or a notary that will take this special notarization form. It's called Hancock acknowledgement. And then the other big thing is timing. If someone is they're signing their documents for a closing that's supposed to be on a Friday, I can't fund until I get those documents back in my office. Mm-hmm. So we needed to make sure that the lender and everyone is really aware ahead of time in case we need to delay funding till we get the documents back, because that's another difference between California. We fund immediately, same day.
That was the weird part. I was just talking to somebody about this. In California, you usually get a couple days. You sign, you review your mortgage documents, you sign at the notary in your house or at the title company, and then the lender gets the doc back. They fund. The escrow coordinator calls and says, you funded and we've received recording confirmation, and then we meet and give keys. Here in Georgia, everything happens all at once.
Sometimes I have sellers at my table and we've signed everything and people are taking cute pictures. We have lots of signs to take pictures with. It's very fun. And people take pictures, and then I wire money, and they literally have the wire. They look in their phone and the wire is in their account. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because the title companies in Georgia insure what's called the gap. So if the seller at closing is going to sign an owner's affidavit saying they don't know of any liens, they don't have any encumbrances on the property, and I can record the deeds, but I don't have to wait for the deeds to be recorded. The title insurance company covers the gap period between when the good through date of the courthouse records are and the closing dates or the date of recording. It's called gap insurance.
Okay. So kind of like your car gap insurance.
Yeah, instead of on value though, it's on time. I've actually had it before where I've been gapped, where I had a seller sign an affidavit, we reviewed it, he said he didn't have any liens, and we closed, I'm just gonna say on June 8th, he had a lien filed against him on June 1st. There's no way I could have found that lien because our courthouse records are usually about 2 weeks behind. The title insurance company would then go ahead and step in if that lien needed to be paid and pay the lien and then go back and sue the person for lying on his owner's affidavit. False swearing. False swearing.
Wow, okay.
Because an affidavit is your swearing.
Yeah.
So he said he didn't have any liens, and boom, there he was.
So this is note to sellers here in Georgia as well. Make sure your affidavit is signed accurately and you are disclosing, which you should anyways, accurately, regardless. Let's all tell the truth.
Yeah, that'd be a great start.
Title insurance or title research or whatever, you have escrow and you have title, typically under the same umbrella. But two separate departments. There are two different line items of fees on your net sheet and all those kinds of things. Are you like a First American Title here? Is there a title backing company that's a larger corporate type thing?
Yes. We are agents for multiple title insurance companies. So like at our office, we're agents for about 5 different title insurance companies. So I can issue a policy on the different company depending on the situation. So it may be that the person the title had a prior issue and it was covered by, the seller actually had title insurance to cover them on title insurance company A. I'm going to try to stay with that company so that I don't have to go get a clearance from a different company, because once it's insured, it's insured. So we have attorney's fees, which are for handling the escrow side, the money, getting the docs recorded, and then we also have the title agency's fees, and we are agents for the title. I'm a title insurance agent.
Got it. Okay. And that's actually one big thing that I noticed was different. I'm going to go back and we're going to do a spreadsheet cost comparison against a house of a price the same in California. But what I have noticed in overall is the fees that in California are more in general, and I'll put up a line item thing here than in Georgia.
And that's why we're still an attorney state, because no title companies want to come in and do what we do, because there's no money in the title insurance here. The title insurance companies do file rates with they're called published rates, with the title insurance commissioner. And so they have to stick to those rates. There's no negotiation. And
that's nice.
Yeah. It used to be that we could actually negotiate rates. We also don't have a reissue rate here. So if you did have a title insurance policy on ABC title company, and then you want to do a refinance or you want to do another transaction, you don't get a rate. It's the same rate because the rates are so low.
Okay. The biggest thing I noticed again was just the overall cost in California, traditionally a lot of the tax transfer fees and all of those other things stay with the seller, and they're on the seller's side. Can be negotiated is always the caveat. However, here in Georgia, the seller pays the seller fees, the buyer pays the buyer fees. You can ask again, everything's negotiable. But traditionally, when I'm doing a net sheet for a seller in California, I'm putting all the fees on the seller side because it's their obligation to provide a natural hazards disclosure and all this other things. It's their obligation, again, we're gonna touch on the buyer beware situation, to disclose to the new buyer everything they can about that property, including earthquakes and all these other crazy things that go on there. Anything else that you think would be pertinent to somebody who is out of state at all, who is not familiar with necessarily an attorney state?
I would definitely tell people that if you're writing a contract for January 20th, make sure you're available to come January 20th and appoint a power of attorney, get it approved ahead of time. It's not like you see on TV where people are signing on their phones. You can't buy a house. I always make the joke, people think that they can buy a house through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru with Chick-fil-A here, that they're literally like ordering their nuggets and then like, hold on 1 second, I gotta click and buy a house. It's not that easy. Wiring money is a huge thing here as well. Georgia is a good fund state, which means we can't take a personal check, we can't take a certified check, we have to have a wire, and wire fraud is big. So our big suggestion is to please call our office from a number that you can independently verify. Don't look on the email and call the number on the email or call the number on the wiring instructions. Find the number that you can independently verify. I mean, people call my cell phone, I don't care. I would rather them check 6 times before they wire money, because I actually have a friend of mine was trying to buy a house, and there was they got a set of wiring instructions, 2 different ones, and one was fraud, and that once it's gone,
it's gone. Wire fraud is no joke, and it is very, very hard to track or especially get it back when you need it. I mean, if you were sending it, it's to buy the house, and God forbid that money not be there, you're not probably going to buy that house unless you're independently wealthy, which we'll talk.
Yeah. The other thing is time zone changes. So if you are on the West Coast and you're using your great lender that you love from the West Coast, just make sure that they're open during East Coast hours, because we have closing. I try not to schedule 9 o'clock closings. I try not even to schedule 10 o'clock closings, but it happens. And if we're at a 10 o'clock closing, we may be waiting on that lender's money. And again, West Coast people don't know we fund at the table.
It is imperative that you understand the process here. So if you are working with a lender over there, they better be real familiar with the process, because it just becomes it's a pain. It's a pain. The time zone thing is huge, but just the process itself. Again, in California, we don't do any of that. Escrow handles that all behind the scenes. They request the money. They do everything. The buyers and sellers have no idea of what's going on. They're clearing conditions and everything else. Here, it all happens right in front of you at the closing table with the people you're sitting with. So get familiar.
Yeah, definitely. There's nothing worse than waiting for a West Coast lender to either send us money or approve the document. So a lot of lenders, we have to take the entire package that we sign and ship it off while everyone's here. And then the people will say, oh, you're next in line. I'm like, we have a crying baby. Sorry, don't put that on camera, because I don't want people to know my excuse.
Secrets. Secrets of a Georgia closing attorney. Dun, dun, dun. If anybody needs a great, amazing, and fun Georgia closing attorney, because it's all about having a good relationship with somebody you can trust, and I gotta tell you, she's worth it. Thanks.
Thank you.